Thank you, Claire. All right, let me try that again. Hello, everyone. Very happy that you're here. My name is Shuning Su. I am the community manager of Threat Modeling Connect. For those who just joined us or who are new to Threat Modeling Connect, we are the global community dedicated to threat modeling, to supporting each other in each other's threat modeling journey. We host a variety of events throughout the year, including the community meetups today. And we also do annual virtual hackathon, which I know a lot of you joining us are from the hackathon as well. And we just finished the first European edition of ThreatModCon. We are the host of ThreatModCon as well. That's in threat modeling conference. I think it's the world's only conference dedicated to threat modeling only. So yeah, it's really very good to very happy to see many familiar faces from ThreatModCon as well. So thank you for joining us. So I am excited to introduce our speaker today, and we have Audrey Long, the Senior Security Software Engineer at Microsoft, and Audrey will introduce herself fully in a bit. She was a participant in our Spring Hackathon, and her threat model, her team threat model, received a call out from one of the judges as the best attack tree ever seen in the decades. So what she's going to share today is the AI tools that she developed, helps generate that model and the attack tree. So let's talk what you can expect today. Our goals for the Threat Modeling Connect monthly meetup is to collaborate, to share, so that you can learn and exchange ideas with each other. We do adopt the Shandon House rules. So you may be aware of if you are regulars. So please adhere, but feel free to use the information that you learn here. And if you're comfortable, feel free to turn on your video, especially during the small group discussion, which we will have after the presentation. That's, just makes it easier for people to get to know you and make it easier, more comfortable for you to stay engaged. Now, for those who are regulars, you know the drill. We will kick things off with the group photos and in a minute, and we will have the presentation. We're introducing a new element today. It's called the small group discussion. And the idea behind this is to make it more comfortable, make it more easier for you to openly share your challenges with each other and to openly share and receive feedback. So after the presentation, we're going to send you into the breakout rooms. Each room will be facilitated by one of our facilitators today. So thank you to our facilitator, Claire, James, Mila, and Maria. Audrey will also be facilitating one of the room, of course. After the breakout session, we are going to come back for an insight sharing session where each group will share your key takeaways. Okay, so without further ado, it's a photo time. What I'm going to do is I will encourage all of you to turn on your video. And oops, one slide ahead. I'm going to take a group photo. There's more people than I can fit in my screen. I'll try. Probably gonna take two. I will give, say, 10 seconds in case there are more people who want to turn on your video. You can. All right. So make sure you are centered, looking great. And I will count down from three. So three, and I'll need to take a couple, like I said, because there are more people than I can fit in on my screen. And I saw Michael still joining, so I'll give Michael a few seconds. All right. So 3, 2, 1. Yay. This is the first one. I'm going to turn to the second page. All right. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Awesome. So that's our group photo. Thanks so much. We're going to post the photos on LinkedIn later, so be sure to follow us, Threat Modeling Connect on LinkedIn, and drop a comment when you see it. All right, now I will hand it over to Audrey for the presentation. Audrey, the floor is yours. I'm going to stop share, so you can go ahead and share your screen.
Oh, actually, do you mind sharing the slides and I can share for the demo? Sorry, I'm in a
Oh,
hotel right now, so I'm
I
limited to one.
sorry, it was my fault. Yeah, that was the plan. I got too excited, I guess. All right, let me share my screen again. Sorry, I'm going to drag the slides. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Good. Okay, perfect. All right.
All right. Thank you so much, guys, for joining in this conversation today. Before we jump into the crux of the conversation, just going to give you a little bit about me. So I'm a senior security software engineer at Microsoft. I work with a lot of Fortune 500 customers, and I jump in as like a security and identity subject matter expert. I really help them try to do any kind of architecture, coding, and a lot of threat modeling. So I do basically everything that has to do with security and identity with customers. Aside from that, I have my undergrad from the University of Cincinnati in computer science. And a few years ago, I actually completed my master's degree from the Johns Hopkins University in cybersecurity. If anyone's ever thinking about grabbing a master's, I would super recommend doing the curriculum there. It was really awesome. And I loved how you can cater it to really your needs and what you're interested in. Plus, they have a great class, security engineering, that goes into some really great in-depth views on doing some great classical threat modeling. Aside from that, I'm a pretty big nerd. So I love video games, I love sci-fi books, I love horror movies. And if there's anything that you guys can recommend, drop it in the chat. I'm absolutely going to go check that out. Next slide, please. All right. So I'd like to share with you the threat modeling algorithm that I employ. It's a systemic step-by-step method for identifying, analyzing, and mitigating threats. Unlike many, I don't typically rely on threat modeling tools to assist me in my process. Instead, I prefer to construct threat models manually. This preference really stems from the deeper contextual understanding and creative thinking that insight and intuition can provide. Some of those aspects the toolings often overlook. I find it beneficial to really customize threat models to specific needs of a project, allowing me for swift adaptation of changes and easier evaluation of trade-offs between security controls and other factors such as usability and cost. Given the rapid changing scope of the cloud, I believe that most threat modeling tools often struggle to keep pace with new services and modifications to existing ones. So I'm going to really jump in a little bit here just to give you the algorithm that I typically use when I'm doing threat models, because then in the next slides, we'll go into depth about what parts of this can we really automate. So, the first step in this process is really analyzing the existing system. This involves understanding the system that's being created, grabbing all those architecture images, all the requirements up front, so we have a really great understanding on what it is we're threat modeling. The second step is really to create a data flow diagram. This diagram, generally provides a visual representation on how data moves through the system, helps us understand where data is stored, who has access to it, how it's protected. And this step is crucial as it allows us to visualize potential vulnerabilities and some of those attack vectors. The third step is really to go in and identify those threats. So this is where we'll use some of those frameworks, like the OWASP framework, Stride framework, whatever it is that you like to use. And then based on, the threat modeling diagram, we'll identify those potential threats for each component of the system in the data flow diagram. And this could really be anything from like unauthorized access to data breaches. The fourth step is to create those mitigations. Once we've identified and prioritized the threats, we want to develop strategies to mitigate them. This could involve implementing new security measures, updating existing ones, or even redesigning certain aspects of the system. And the final step is to continuously iterate, validate, and verify. Threat modeling is not a one-time process. As new threats emerge and our systems evolve, we need to continuously update our threat model. We validate and verify our model to ensure it accurately represents the current threat landscape. Next slide, please. All right, so AI can automate a lot of these different capabilities that we really just went over in the typical threat modeling algorithm. And I know for each business, you probably do threat modeling a little bit differently, give or take a step, but still, it should be around the same type of an algorithm. So let's talk about it. So AI can really automate threat identification and prioritize those potential threats. This is just not about speed, but also about the ability to analyze vast amounts of data for patterns and anomalies that might indicate a threat. In the complex landscape of cybersecurity, not all threats are created equal. Some pose a greater risk than others, and AI can really help us rank threats based on their potential impact and likelihood, ensuring that we can focus our resources and efforts where they're needed most. AI can also suggest effective mitigation strategies. By learning from past data and incidents and enriching some of our LLMs, AI can provide insights into what countermeasures work best against certain types of threats. This can significantly enhance our response to threats and reduce the potential damage that they can cause. AI can also automate the generation of attack trees by identifying potential attack vectors and mapping them out in a comprehensive and structured manner. It can also dynamically update attack trees in response to new threats or changes in the system, ensuring that the model always reflects the current landscape as well. So AI can also theoretically help us create data flow diagrams. However, this capability is very advanced, even for AI. Potentially in the future, where more multimodal LLMs become available, this might be easier to achieve. And I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm just saying it's very difficult. AI's predictive capabilities, they're really a game changer here. The ability to anticipate and prepare for future threats allows us to shift from a reactive to proactive stance in our threat modeling. And this means we're not just responding to threats as they occur, but actively working to prevent them. AI offers us the opportunity to make our threat modeling more efficient, accurate, and proactive. As we continue to advance our AI capability, we can expect even greater enhancements to our threat modeling processes. Next slide, please. All right, so let's talk a little bit before we jump into some demos around using AI responsibly. So AI, in particular, LLMs, have become increasingly sophisticated, capable of generating high-quality content that can sometimes be indistinguishable from human-generated content. However, it is crucial to remember that AI is a tool, and like any tool, it should be used responsibly. One of the key vulnerabilities identified by OWASP in the context of LLMs is the over-reliance on LLM-generated content. This over-reliance can lead to the propagation of misleading or incorrect information, decreased human input and decision-making, and can reduce critical thinking. So some common issues related to this over-reliance on LLM-generated content include just accepting LLM-generated content as fact without verification, assuming that LLM-generated content is free from bias or misinformation, and relying on LLM-generated content for critical decisions without human input or oversight. To use AI responsibly, we need to maintain a healthy skepticism towards the content generated by AI. We should always verify the information, be aware of those potential biases, and ensure that critical decisions are not made solely based on this AI-generated content. So a lot of the times when I'm actually using AI, I'm using those tools. I feel like it takes me about halfway there. There's always still going to be need for improvement, need for humans to look at this data and really use it as a tool to help you with your critical thinking processes with whatever it is you're doing. Next slide, please. All right, so for this talk, I really wanted to jump into attack trees. So here is one picture of one of the attack trees that I actually provided to the Threat Modeling Hackathon. I went through and I did all of the OWASP LLM top 10 attack trees and created attack trees, for them to really show to the reader how can some of these things actually be achieved. And if you haven't actually created an attack tree, let me give a really quick overview. So attack trees provide a methodical way of describing the security of systems based on varying attacks. They are essentially multi-level diagrams where the goal, typically an attack on the system, forms at the root of the tree. The branches represent different ways of achieving that goal, and the leaves represent the actionable methods to execute those paths. The benefit of using attack trees in threat modeling are numerous. They provide a clear, structured way of understanding potential threats. They help in visualizing the attack paths, identifying vulnerabilities, and developing effective mitigation strategies. They can also be weighted to really showcase the most actionable and threatening attack paths that an adversary can take to achieve the goal node. Creating attack trees manually, though, can be a complex and time-consuming process due to several reasons. The inherent complexity of systems makes identifying all possible attack vectors a daunting task, as each component can have multiple potential vulnerabilities, each of which can have been exploited in numerous ways. This process of identifying the goal of an attack, brainstorming all possible methods an attacker might use, and breaking down each method into actionable steps needs to be repeated for each of these vulnerabilities as well, making it a very lengthy process. Additionally, the dynamic and constantly evolving threat landscapes means that attack trees need to be regularly updated, which could also be difficult without the use of AI. The creation of attack trees without AI can also be influenced by the knowledge and bias of the security experts involved, potentially leading to some threats being overlooked or underestimated. Lastly, as a system grows in size and complexity, it becomes increasingly difficult to manually create and maintain these attack trees. But here, AI can play a significant role in enhancing the utility of attack trees. It can automate the generation of these attack trees and analyze them to identify the most likely or most dangerous attack paths. This not only simplifies the creation of attack trees, but also makes them a powerful tool in proactive threat modeling. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen in a moment, and I'm going to go and do a few demos with you guys. Right. Can you guys please let me know when you see my screen? All right, cool, awesome. Yeah, so I wanted to show two different demos here. One is how can we actually use a tool like AI to help us create an attack tree in two different environments. The first one's actually going to be, this is called Azure AI Open Studio. So whenever you go and deploy Azure OpenAI in your Microsoft instance, you actually get access to this studio. And I really love to use it because I think it's a really great way to get started. And what I really wanted to showcase here was a few things. So first and foremost, here in Azure OpenAI Studio, you can easily put in your system message here. And just to give you guys the context of the system message that I'm giving to this LLM, you're an AI security expert. Your role is to help build attack trees. An attack tree starts with the main goal, otherwise known as the root node. And from there, you break down this main goal into smaller steps or objects known as subnodes and explain how the root goal can be achieved and provide detailed information on how to reach the main goal. So here we have set up where we can give this environment a prompt to give it more of a context or a persona on how it can actually answer us. And the really nice thing about Azure AI Studio, and I'm really not trying to sell this to you guys, I'm not trying to sell you any tools, I'm just showing you my experience and what I really like about it, is that you can easily add your own data here. Now, this is important because when you enrich your data, when you enrich your LLM with your data, then you actually get some really more robust answers that potentially could be more useful for you as like a security expert going and doing some of these threat modeling activities. So I actually have my prompt here in Word. So basically, I've given my LLM, context. I have given it a system message, and I just want to show very quickly, like I'm giving it the prompt now of like, give me an attack tree for a large language model prompt injection. There are some really goofy nuances, with AI. For example, if you tell it LLM, it's actually not going to off the bat say large language model. Instead of like say some, it'll like assume it's something different, which is really funny. But yeah, I just wanted to show like this is one way in which you can really get started with figuring out like what kind of AI tools and capabilities would actually really help you out, is by going into something like Azure AI Studio and drafting out what you think would be really beneficial for you and your teams. And yeah, grabbing out some answers. So here you can see, like from that prompt, it actually did a pretty good job on like showing me like this is what the main root node could be, executing prompt injection attacks on LLMs, and then it'll go into a subnode, and then it'll actually go in deeper than that to really tell you how it can achieve that. As I've mentioned earlier, with the over reliance on LLMs, like all of this content is probably not going to be 100% what you want, but that's where the magic of being a security expert comes in here. You can really see what doesn't make sense and go and tweak that, or like give the LLM like more of a, oh no, this isn't what I'm interested in. Actually, I'm more interested in something like this, and it does a pretty good job on actually accommodation. And this is where I think that humans always need to be kept in the loop, with using stuff like this, because I can't even tell you how many times I've read some things that LLMs have spit out as a security engineer and thought, oh no, that's definitely not how I would do that, or I don't think that's that's actually viable. But one last thing I wanted to show you in this portal before I actually jump over into my code is there's a button here that I love, which actually shows you how to do everything you've done here in this screen in code. And this also includes this configuration tab over here, where you can tweak your parameters in your LLM to make it more random, or you can make it more concise, more creative, whatever it is that really tunes the model to give you the answers that you're interested in. And I can tell you from experience from using this in particular, it doesn't always work right off of the bat 100%. I've never gotten lucky enough to actually copy the code directly from here and put it into the VS Code and it just compiles. I've always had to do a little finagling. So maybe when Azure OpenAI's capabilities expand more and get more robust in the future, potentially this could be a better experience. So jumping over here, what I wanted to really show and demo as well is how I've created this program called Attack Tree GPT. And with like the help of basically Azure OpenAI endpoints, I've really created all of those attack trees, which I actually submitted and got that feedback for in the threat modeling hackathon. And this is actually a tweaked version of this tool because I also really wanted to demonstrate and highlight other capabilities that you can really do here. So just to give you a little bit of an overview, and I'll do a little step through the code and I'll show you some of the results that's given me. Just an overview of this code. So what I do is something really interesting. I take something like an image. In this case, we have this image that was actually provided as a prompt from the Threat Modeling Hackathon. And I use this library, there's endpoint in Azure, also called OCR. And OCR is another AI endpoint that I can use to actually take an image and scrape all of the words off of the image. And this is also like multimodal, where I want to understand like, okay, I'm an architect, I'm a threat modeler, I'm going to look at all of your architecture first. So let's see what kind of tooling can I actually help me to accelerate this process. So what I do is I actually take an image like this, scrape all of the words off of it. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of words in here that are really not very useful, right? So in regards to what I've done with my prompting is I've taken this image, scraped all the words, and then I asked my LLM, like, okay, with this list of words that I've gotten from scraping off of this image, please give me the AWS services. And just to show kind of a little back and forth here, because I don't really want to go through the terminal with you guys, it would be quite a process. I will just kind of share with you what that looks like. So here I have the list of services that the first LLM actually provided back to me, which shows pretty much every AWS service that's on that image, which is great. And yes, I could do a little bit better prompt engineering to have it not just pick just AWS services, but GitHub's also represented on that screen. But different story for a different time. Prompt engineering can be a little difficult. So here's one instance of like what the output actually looks like from when I wanted to just give me that list. Now that I have this list of services, then we can actually do a lot more with it. So for example, what I do is after I generate that list of services, I like to pass it to a different LLM endpoint and try to figure out like what kind of threats and mitigations can I also get from this, oh, sorry, was there a question? All right. Yeah. So anyway, I can grab some threats and mitigations to also kind of help me understand. Like, I have this list of AWS services. What are some of the threats and mitigations that I can actually get from that? And just like I said, because the terminal just has so much data, it's just easier to take a screenshot and show it to you in this kind of a format. So here's just an example where in my prompt, I was just asking it, like, okay, give me a little blurb, like, here's the service, like, what does it do? And like, what are some of the security risks here? So as you can see, it doesn't do a bad job on telling me like what AWS cloud formation is and some of the risks that could potentially be associated with it. And here you can see there's a lot of room for improvement. I have not actually enriched this LLM with like my own data. I could very easily give this LLM, for example, I don't really know what it's called in AWS world, but in Azure world, we have these things called security baselines. And those security baselines contain all of these different mitigations for each service that you're actually going through. So in this instance, like in my like other Azure tools, like give it security baselines so it can enrich that data and give me better answers here. But at the crux of what it is without being enriched, it's not really a bad start. And then the last thing that I want to do in my code is just, hey, give me a list of attack trees. So let's go through this list, and I want you to give me an attack tree for each of these things. And just going back to this, it doesn't do a bad job here either. So it doesn't do a bad job on, oops, sorry, I think I'm lagging a little bit. Going through from the root goal node, like what is going to be the threat here, like gaining unauthorized access to AWS CodeStar resources. And then it actually, in this structure, has gone through like the subnode level and then the leaf level, which really highlights like how can some of these be achieved. And this is just the output of what this looks like at the moment. I'm still thinking of ways to actually enhance this capability where I don't have to actually go and just copy paste like these and put them in like a pictorial representation, for example, but there are like other things like Mermaid, for example, that could actually create some of these diagrams and these tools for me. So that's something that I'm actually looking as an enhancement in the future, is to actually have this program diagram this out for me. And that's really what I wanted to showcase and highlight here in today's demonstration. I'm really happy to also share this repository out if people think that this is going to be insightful for their learnings in the future too. And that is all I had to share. I'll stop sharing my screen so I could have a little more bandwidth back, but are there any questions?
Yeah, I guess one question. Where do you go from there as far as helping improve your own security? So you create this attack tree and you have these lists of potential mitigations. I mean, just off the top of my head, the thing you're missing is, or if I had this in my hands, what I wouldn't know is, well, what's going on in my own systems is one thing, and then what do I need to do to make things better? So how do you, is this just the starting point, or do you take it to the point where you're actually looking at existing systems and thinking of mitigations?
Yeah, what I really wanted to highlight in this talk is that this is just the starting point. Like, this is the beginning of AI and showing how we can use tools like AI to really enhance our threat modeling capabilities. And just from this short little demo of like how to even just create attack trees, I think that that demonstrates like pretty well what we can potentially do in our world of threat modeling to make it even better. So yeah, I have many different tools. This is just one little tool that I wanted to demo here in this session. And yeah, happy to provide, like I said, my repository if folks wanted to get inspiration on creating some of their own tools to really fit like whatever use cases that you would like more advanced like AI tooling in.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Audrey, have you experimented around enhancing it from a persona perspective, i.e., you're an Azure architect expert with blah blah blah. Now run down that and tell me threats according to NIST. Have you tried with that, and have you gotten accurate filtered results?
Yes, so I actually have tried that, not with NIST, but with Stride. So it does a good job. However, I'm going to caveat something very, very high level here, and that is it took me longer to write the prompts to get the answers that I expected, it took me longer to write those than it did to write the code. And then if you start to actually jump into creating some tooling on your own, you'll see that prompt engineering itself is definitely a difficult task. You have to be very elegant with the way of telling the model what it is you're exactly looking for and being really concise about that. And that itself can be a hard activity.
Yeah, I've experienced that where I've realized I had to kind of adopt the mindset of a novelist, and I'm writing the character of a story. And at that point, it's like I could have just had this up and running in half the time or less.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get that with some of those tools for sure. But yeah, prompt engineering can absolutely be difficult.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Audrey, I have one question. Maybe that is not that much of related of this topic, maybe, but it's just that I just wanted to understand, like when we are when we are doing when we are in the process of the threat modeling, and obviously we look for the Stride framework, definitely like the Microsoft Stride framework. Okay. But yeah, so like while creating the prompt, obviously that's the hardest part, to create the right prompt that can give you the right answer that you're really looking for. I mean, like as you mentioned, like it took so much time to like create the prompt engineering prompts for this one, for the Azure AI Studio. So I just wanted to know the approach. I mean, like obviously, even I was trying to do that on the Azure AI. Okay, recently, like, it just like this is not my background, the threat modeling, but recently I did the training. It like interested me a lot, and I was just digging this, that, and also I also explored this Azure AI. So while writing the prompt, like what is the right approach that you start with, and just ending with the right prompt after completing the one prompt? I mean. I hope you got my answer. Question. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a lot of trial and error,
Yeah, true enough.
honestly. And sometimes like when you give it like certain words, or maybe even you misspell something, sometimes
Yes.
it gives you a better answer, and there is some
Exactly. Yeah.
inconsistency there too. And that's where actually the fine tuning
Mhm.
comes into place, where you can actually make that more consistent. But I agree with you. At the moment, like with where we're at in today's AI tooling, we're always evolving. That's always changing. There probably will be like better tools out there to actually help you write prompts, and I
Yeah.
would be surprised if that already does not exist. But yeah, it's very particular on what it wants. And sometimes what I've seen too is even if you like write a prompt in a different language, it'll completely give you a different answer.
Yes.
So
True
it's
enough.
really funny, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Makes sense. And also, like while creating the threat models, at the first step, when we create a diagram, the flow diagram for the threats, actually, like we have like multiple trust boundaries, like for the application, web application, and the mobile application, even for the network also. Like I come from the network background, so I just try to learn threat modeling and to implement in the network sides. I mean, like the network segmentation and everything. So like I'm just trying to create that threat model. So yeah, in that the design flow diagram, like once we have that design flow diagram with us, can we start from there only to automate, or we have to like go for a further stage of designing, or like we have the challenges and everything. Suppose like if I have, I mean like suppose we have a one website, like they have the like suppose that we have the booking.com, okay, and we have to like first we have to understand like how this booking.com works, right? Their entire business, how they make money and all, how the business goes. Based on that, you will be thinking like what exactly threats will be like it will be applicable to that particular business, right? Based on that, you will be creating the threats and everything, and then you will be doing the scoring and everything. We will be doing that. So I just wanted to know, like, is there a way on the Azure AI Studio that we can do that also, or like that is the first step we have to do it only, I mean, by ourselves?
Yeah, so for your instance of like, can you help threat models like create like business threat models is kind of like what I'm getting at from the
Yeah.
question.
Yes,
Yeah,
kind of.
absolutely.
Yes.
Like you can with that system message and like even enriching the data with whatever it is that you
Mhm.
want it to like understand about the system.
Mhm.
That could help you pretty astronomically in creating like more of like a business case like threat model, for example. So really the tooling is in your hands.
Yeah,
You as
exactly.
the user can really predetermine like what it is you need from AI. And that's the beauty of it.
Yes.
That's what I love about it. But yeah, happy to talk more offline about that because I think
Mhm.
we need to go now into the next session, which is
Yeah,
the group discussions.
sure.
Yeah, so we are actually going to send all of you into this breakout rooms to have the small group discussions. And we have 2 prompts here. Given the interest of time, you may or may not be able to go through both questions, but in your small group, you can decide which questions you want to focus on.